Hi, today we're going to change the windshield wiper motor in a 2000 F250. I've already removed the wiper blades. It's a simple little clip that pops off. And I've removed screws from, I believe it was 6 screws along here that frees up all of this plastic. And we're going to need to remove that. And there's these little, the little plastic, shark fin sort of things that press down in there. I'm going to pause the video while I take those out. Okay, I've removed all the little things. It also held this on, so when I put it back, I have to make sure that I get, this put back in place and put in correctly. You can see that this is split, and there's this rubber seal here for, keeping water out of the engine compartment. And I'm just going to pull that right off, and that's going to end up sitting on the garage floor until I get back to it. I've also had to take out the antenna because the antenna comes through this hole, and I simply used a 3/8 inch wrench and loosened it up so I can remove the antenna and be able to get everything taken apart. I'll restart the video again in a couple of seconds. Okay, the rubber strip is removed and the antenna has been removed, and now we have where the windshield wiper attaches. Where the windshield wiper attaches, that's a hole, and you just kind of have to lift it over that hole and slide this plastic part away. So I have all the plastic parts removed. I'm just kind of sitting forward. There's little hoses for for the window washing fluid, and I haven't disconnected them. If I wanted to take these all the way out of the engine compartment, I could disconnect them and just put them back together later. In here you can see that this is where the motor is. It's underneath of this housing, and there's this shaft that is going to then take the power to that wiper. There's one behind it that then brings the power back to this wiper, and what I'm going to need to do is get this motor out from underneath of this housing here. So there was a bolt on top of this bracket. I removed the bolt with an 8mm socket wrench, and it takes some wiggling to get it off. You can see that there is flat spots on this shaft, so there's only one way to put this back on here, and I'm going to need to try to get this back in the same position when I put the new one on, so the windshield wipers sit in the correct position when they're seated, and if not, I'll make adjustments then. So to get the motor out, I took off 3 bolts here, and the motor dropped out of place. The size wrench I was using was 8mm. Then there wasn't enough room to just slide the motor out, so I took off bolt there and 2 up here, and these, I'm able to move this enough now so I can slide the motor out. Now I need to disconnect the electrical supply. You simply pinch and pull, but I need 2 hands. So this is the old motor that I've removed, and you can see that the shaft has like square sides to it. And so I'm looking at the new motor, and those square sides appear to be in the same kind of position. So that's going to be a huge benefit when I put it back together, because then I can just put my wipers directly back in place without having to worry about it. If it was in a different position, I would have to run the wiper motor until I had it where I needed it, but since it's in this position, I think I'm good. So I'm not a real mechanic, and maybe somebody else knows something better. But when I go to put the electrical connection back together, I'm going to put a little dielectric grease on there. Not just regular grease, not motor oil, dielectric grease. That's going to help to keep the corrosion off the electronics. So I'm trying to balance my phone so that I can shoot this, and if my hands get in the way, I apologize. Here's the new motor. Here is the electric plug, and I'm going to plug that in. There's only one way that it goes in correctly. Just make sure it's in there nice and snug, and then we can slide the motor back into its position. A little wiggle and a jiggle. Get it back where it's supposed to be. I'm getting ready to bolt the motor back into place, and before putting it in, I put blue Loctite onto the bolt threads, and that's just going to help it keep it cleaner, keep the rust free, and hopefully then if I have to do this again, it'll just make my life a lot easier. So I'm going to be holding the motor up into place, but I need 2 hands for this, and there'll be a bolt in each of those 3 holes that you can see there. Now that those 3 bolts are back in place and they're holding the motor to that bracket, now I need to bolt the bracket back down where it's supposed to be using the 3 bolts here, here, and one back here. So I use Loctite, and I put back the bracket with that bolt, that bolt, that bolt. And I did find that it was easier to do with the hood closed a little bit. It just makes my life easier, and because I can reach in there better. But I think I have everything in place. I've snugged down the 3 bolts that hold this bracket in place. Now it's time to reattach the arm. Again, the arm has this oblong kind of a shape to it, and the motor has that flat sides on it. So we're gonna have to get that positioned and then kind of squinch it down on there. And I'm gonna need 2 hands to, I'm gonna need 2 hands to do this. So I'm setting the video down again. So it took a little wiggling, a little jiggling, but you know, a couple of very light taps with the hammer, and I have that bolt back in place. And now what we're doing is putting back on the bolt on top here that is going to hold this in place for sure. And I'm gonna snug that down, and then we'll move on. Now, this is a rebuilt motor that I put in here, and so you would be tempted at this point to just kind of throw all the plastic parts back on top and, you know, put things back together and call it a day. But because it's a rebuilt motor, I'm going to start it, you know, I'm going to turn the motor on and test it. As you can see, everything is going the way it should be. That motor is turning, everything sounds nice and smooth, and we can see that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing with that one. You can see the little knob turning back and forth. And the same thing down here, this little knob is turning back and forth. And I'm going to turn the wipers off and finish up the job. When I turned the wipers off, then turned off the key, instead of just turning off the key, what that does is it puts everything back in the same position as when I started. So when I go to put my wiper blades back in place, I should be able to position them, you know, and kind of call it done. If I had just turned off the key and these were in a different position, that would have messed me up. So I've put the plastic covers back into place, and I have reattached, you know, this bar that we took off earlier that has this jug on it. I'm not a big fan of those little plugs that you stick in there, those little plastic ones that I have to pull out. So what I've used is zip ties to put them back in place, the redneck mechanic's friend. Okay, this is all screwed down now, the plastic. This little rubber seal here to keep the water out, that's been put back in place. It just sits down on that ridge, and now it's going to be time to reinstall the wipers. So the wipers just have this little clip, and you know, that's what holds it on. So we just have to get it set back pretty close to place, and because my wipers are back in the same position, I'm going to use like the line of dirt or whatever that was still on there from when I took them off. And success! We have working wipers, and they seem to be doing just fine. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's the first one I've ever tried, so be kind in your comments. Thank you.